Welcome to Grace by Rain, a podcast about the beauty in life. I'm your host, Elaine Shercliffe. Welcome back, everyone. It's been a bit of a long time. We are officially starting season 5. Typically, I start season 5 in September, but I am having surgery on August 8th. So I'm dropping this the day before. So you'll hear that then, and I'll be dropping a few pre-recorded episodes every Monday for the next few weeks while I'm in recovery. And that's why I decided to start things off in August instead of September. Since I was going to be out and I was already pre-recording, I didn't want to rush through recovery to make sure that I started the season on time. So instead, we're starting early. And the pre-recorded episodes should hopefully get me through the recovery and a little bit longer. So I'm excited about that. A few updates before we dive into the topic of this week's episode. I did get my credentials back with the Monsters because Grace by Rain is now an LLC. It is a small business in the great state of Ohio. I made it into a multimedia type small business where my writing, both sports and non-sports related, my photography, my singing, my composing, all of that will be housed. So now I don't have to go through different people. I'm just my own boss. So I'm very excited about that. Being my own boss means that I can go on my timetable. I can take time off when I need to and not have to worry about helping anyone else get their stuff done, do their stuff. So I'm really excited about that because that kind of contributed to my burnout over the course of a few seasons. I was just constantly helping others, and things would fall on me too at different sites and different things I worked at. And now, if I want the day off, people I work with aren't going to be texting me or DMing me nonstop, despite the fact that it's my day off. Because the only person I'm working with is me. So I'm really excited about that. So thank you to all of the people who believed in me and pushed me towards um, getting my LLC. This is just a step forward towards all the dreams that I have. So, yay. And for those who don't know, the surgery I'm having, it's nothing super major. I apparently don't have a drain in one of my sinuses, and the other sinus, the drain is down a little bit lower. And so I've had an ongoing sinus infection on and off for about a year and a half. Hasn't been great. If you listen to the Amnation pod that I'm often on, I'm a part of as well. You hear me coughing a lot. That's why. That's why. Because my sinuses are so jacked up. So they have to go in and they have to create the drains. And then they also have to essentially break my nose. So my nose might look a little different when I come out, which I'm not gonna lie, I've been stressing out about because despite being unhealthy, and I know I need to be healthier, but I very much love the way I look. I love who I am. I love my nose, especially. And it's my grandma's nose. We have this very similar nose. The grandma that I share a birthday with. So my birthday is coming up, and it's a little weird for me to think that come our birthday, and we might not be sharing the same nose anymore. But that's something I'm working through. Um, I'm working through that with my counselor as well. So I know it seems silly probably to some people, but my nose is very important to me. But I would rather be healthy, and being able to, not be sick all the time, not have my immune system be super low. I'm excited to be able to like work out again, um, do extracurricular stuff outside of my day job, focusing more on my writing because I'm not exhausted. Being able to work on the yard. I barely get to do it because I come home, I'm already exhausted from work, and I start working on things, and then I get like 5 minutes in and I'm like, I am spent. That's what it's been like this past like year and a half, 2 years. So I'm very excited to no longer feel that way. Mm-mm. So today's episode, season 5, episode 1, is going to be advice for aspiring journalists. It's episode 1 of that series that I'm going to be doing. I'm also doing another series as well, about the beauty of Furin Journey's End. We covered the whole first season on the Amnation Pod, which you can find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from, you can find it there. Although we're still trying to figure out how to get on Audible. So once we get there, you can listen to us there. But as of right now, we're not on Audible. We went, so listen to that episode. We have also been doing the Weebisode book club with manga. So check those out, those past episodes out. We'll be getting back into that in around September when I come back. So I'm really excited about that. But we did one episode on Furin Journey's End, and I love the series so much that I am doing one episode about each episode. Things that I enjoyed from that episode, things I found beautiful. Some episodes are small, some episodes are long with what I found out of it. So you might get like a 15-minute, 20-minute episode for one, and you might get like a 45-minute episode for the other. So be prepared. So, but today I kick off the advice for aspiring journalists and content creators. So let's get it started. I wanted to create this series because a lot of aspiring journalists, they ask me questions. They ask me, how I got into it. They ask me for advice, and there's so much advice that I want to give. Advice that I necessarily maybe didn't know moving into the journalism content creator spectrum. And I wish that I did know, or that somebody had really reinforced that for me, some of this stuff. Some stuff is stuff I already knew, and it helped me a lot. So I want to give advice. People can take it if it fits them, if it works for them, they can take it. But this is stuff that I have shown to others, and it started to work for them as well. So, and there'll be stuff that I haven't kind of told other people yet. No one's really asked. So, so we're gonna do. And as the series goes on, if anyone has any questions or how to handle certain situations, I would love to answer those things. So I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can email me, or you can send me a tweet on Twitter so that I can answer your advice questions. Now, social media wise, I plan on starting to upload these onto YouTube. That won't happen until post-surgery, until after my recovery. My cousins are trying to convince me to do all this on TikTok, so that's where they are all at. So I would like to share things with them. So I will be putting up clips on TikTok. Um, and I will be putting up clips on Instagram and Facebook. Once I start doing that, I'll let all of you know where to find all of that stuff. But I don't want you going there and there not being stuff there yet. So bear with me. You'll find out more about that come September, October-ish. So let's get started. I know I already said that. We know I'm a talker. I know Mike's listening. Sorry, Mike. And Pete's probably listening too. And they're probably like, for the love of God, longest intros ever. But they'll manage. They'll manage because they love me and support me, I think. So the first piece of advice I like to give to those who are aspiring journalists or content creators is, know who you are before you start. Like, what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of person are you? How do you want that to translate to your craft? So kind of think about that for a second. All right. So and from there, what kind of journalist do you want to be? What kind of media personality do you be? Content creator? Do you want to be the breaking news person? Do you want to be dependable? A feature? Do you want to be someone that only finds the negative in the sport? Do you want to be the person who finds only the good? A little bit of both? You want to cover the true, unbiased nature of the sport or whatever you're covering? Those are the kind of things you want to think about. And it's very important to know who you are at your foundation, right? What you believe in, what your strengths are. Because when life gets tough, when you are challenged, you are better equipped to handle those situations because you know who you are and you're better equipped to defend yourself. But if you go into things and you're all over the place, you're slightly unhinged, and you don't really know and don't have a path for what you want or who you are, and you don't have a set of rules that you live by, when it comes to grow or defend yourself or you get put in a new situation, it is a struggle to defend yourself. It is a struggle to get through that new situation. It's not as easy. Things aren't easy in general when you're trying to do journalism, content creating. It's not a cakewalk like people like to think it is, but it makes it easier for you and less stressful. And before you start looking for a job, whether it be in journalism or content creating, you want to place things in 3 different columns: negotiable, negotiable, non-negotiable, and things that don't really matter, that you can live without. It doesn't matter. Some of these things can change over time. You grow, your ideas change, your ideals change a bit, who you are, you change. But your non-negotiables should reflect your core values. At least most of them should. And you don't have to share those requirements with anyone else. Eventually, if people are paying attention, they will notice these things about you through your actions and how you live your life and what you've done in the past. And when you know who you are at your very core, it will help you stick to your guns and know when it's time to say no or move on from a situation. And it's how many times do you get, you say yes because you think possibly it's for you, and then you just get stuck. You get stuck in a situation and you can't get out. You can't. And it's not a place for you. You don't like the way your coworkers do things. You don't like the way the boss does things. And then you're stuck. But if you know this and you know really what you want, you can start looking for a place that fits you and your vibe. And sometimes you get in a situation where you realize that you might have to go out on your own because maybe there isn't a place that's going to fit your vibe and who you are at that moment. An example of things for me, I'm not going to say everything I put in like my negotiable, non-negotiables, you know, I'm not going to say everything because some of those are for me. But for me, one of my non-negotiables is being paid per click. Now, it also depends. There's a little bit more to that. I typically will not work pay for click. I tried it a few times. I absolutely hated it. The content that came out of those sites that I was writing at was shit. Pardon my language, but it was shit. There was a lot of bad clickbait. Titles were all clickbait. I'm not a fan of it, right? I understand that you might have to pay people per click or read based on who your sponsors are. And so I look at how much money then, how much money per click or view you're getting, because that can change my non-negotiable just a little bit. No one has been able to give me an offer that would make me change and give some wiggle room on that. So it's gonna stay a non-negotiable for forever. A negotiable for me is um if there is a deadline or a word count that it must be at minimum, because it depends. Are you saying that my deadline is during the game? Then no, 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 not happening. Do you want a feature after, like it, immediately after the game? That's not happening either. So that becomes kind of like an that we have to negotiate on that. We have a deadline. If you want a recap of just the game without quotes, I can do that for you within like 10 minutes of the buzzer sounding or the horn sounding. I can do that. If you want a full-fledged feature, you got to give me some time. You got to give me a longer deadline, and depending how you want it set up. So if you want just like a quotables article about the game afterwards, I can do that within a few hours. Depends on how much content I'm giving. And honestly, what a lot of places don't realize or care to realize when it comes to these deadlines, and part of this is because of the newspaper. If you're writing for a newspaper, it is difficult with the printing press. I get that. So there's a little bit of like understanding there, but that's why I'm not going to work for those places, because it's not going to fit into what I can do. And then we're just not going to along, and it's going to make both of us look bad. But for a website, right? And you want it within like an hour after the game ends. Well, let me tell you, there are times when coaches and players, it will take them 20 minutes, a half an hour to get out. And that's their right, because they have to go over film. They have to, talk to the team. They might have to shower. They might have to get looked at by the doctor. You can't give a feature so fast after a game if that's what you're depending on, right? So, got to give a little wiggle room there. You have to be honest about what you can give and what situation you're being put in as well when you work on the negotiables. Another example of a non-negotiable is how the boss or owner treats certain things. Like, sexual assault, um, racism, homophobia, anything like that. If they are okay with the people that you work with being any of those, I'm not okay. I'm not okay being there. And I will quit. I will leave. Um, I will go to them, I'll bring it to them. And if nothing is done, then I'm out. Then I'm out. I've been lucky enough the past few times that I've brought things to people's attention and they took care of it. And that's very important to me. And I would hope that if I did something, that they would come to me and take care of it, even if it meant that like I needed to be fired, which I hope I never do anything bad enough to warrant me being fired. But weirder things have happened in life, I guess. But it's important to know that where you work is you feel comfortable being like, yeah, this is who I am. And I'm out here promoting you guys by putting your um putting your name out there, company name out there in post game pressers, wearing the name on my shirt, on business cards. Like I'm okay with giving this promotion all over the world because our ideals, our core values, they align. They all align together. And so if they don't, you have to decide if you feel comfortable or not working for them. I know some people could care less. They're like, it's a paycheck. Um, on the other hand, I struggle with that. I struggle with that. That's who I am. And I know not everyone's that way. It's just an example of negotiables, non-negotiables. Um, things that I could like really care less about, right? Like if I'm writing somewhere and they can't guarantee me a credential. For the most part, I'm not like, if I have access to the game and they're wanting me to write a recap, I don't necessarily need the credential. Now, if you want me to write a more in-depth piece talking about how things were broken down, and like what was going through coach's mind, obviously, I need a credential. I need to be there because at least in hockey, and as I've noticed with a few other sports, is the screen only captures so much, and you can't use your peripherals when you're watching at home. So, for an example, there are times when the defense looks like they're not doing their job because you never see them on the screen. And then when you do see them, it's like a turnover or something of that nature. When you see them live, you're like, oh shoot, like they're really holding it down below the like in the defensive zone. They're in the bottom half of the neutral zone, but you're not seeing that because the offense is doing such a great job. But so it's when you're watching just on TV, you can't always tell. So if you want me to do the nitty-gritty ins and outs, I'm also going to need credentials. But it's not necessarily the biggest deal in the world when you're first covering a team and if all they want from you is a game recap and you have access to watch the game, it's not always the biggest deal to not have it. I know that is absolute. I know some people are probably like, but you're a sports journalist, you should have credentials. And I agree, but I also know it's not always feasible, especially if you come in during the middle of the season or if they don't know you, you still have to prove yourself. Once they know you and you get in there, that's a whole other kind of thing. But before you get in and they know you really well, you kind of have to prove yourself a little bit. So I understand that and I get that. Um, so those are just kind of ideas. Another things to add to whichever side of the list you want is how far you're willing to travel to a game, how far you're willing to travel without being paid or reimbursement, or will you travel without reimbursement? I I definitely, a non-negotiable for me is like when it hits a certain number, I have to be reimbursed at least half of it, right? It's my time and my money. And I have to be reimbursed for my time as well for the travel. But it's not always the case. Like, if I'm going up to Grand Rapids, it's a 5-hour drive and the hotel is inexpensive because I get it ahead of time. So I don't always ask to be reimbursed for those. Now, I am my own boss now, so and I'm not making any money doing the writing part, so I'm not getting reimbursed for that. Maybe from my taxes later on, but it's definitely not a business paying me. So those are things to think about. Things that are important to you and things that will help you get your goals and your dreams. So you really want to take some time before you even start looking and even write out a statement about yourself, like a paragraph. Who are you? What do you stand for? What do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Who are you? How are you going to achieve that? And it will help you so much as you are working towards being a prolific content creator or journalist. Um, so it's very important. Just get to know yourself. Take the time to get to know yourself. And if you don't know who you are, ask the people you love the most, who you're around the most, to kind of help you figure out and pinpoint it. But the most important thing is that you agree with that. If you don't agree with that's who you are, then you need to figure out how to show that that's who you are. Simple. Not that simple, actually. It's really hard for some people to get at the core of who they are and what they want to do and how they tick. So take that time. It could take months. But before you officially dive in and start looking for jobs, you need to know who you are so you know the right place to look and then go from there. All right. That's it for episode 1 of season 5 and episode 1 of the advice for aspiring journalists and content creators. I appreciate you guys listening, and I hope that this helps a little bit in the beginning. And even if you've been covering sports or anything, any sort of thing at all, and you want to create content and you've been doing it for like 10 years, I hope this at least helps you get back on track. Because like I said, we all change, we all grow. Sometimes you have to amend your lists and your dreams and how you're going to manage your goals. So thanks, everyone. Like I said, if you have any questions or want me to give advice, feel free to reach out at I'm a Rain Dancer on Twitter or at Grace by Rain Pod on Twitter. So everyone enjoy your day. And remember, be kind and love always.